I think the atmosphere you were speaking about from 2020, where people's ideas were being boxed in, has almost kind of mutated, I think, into particularly post 7th of October, this extreme polarization, particularly when it comes to talking about the Gaza war in Israel, and that then spills over to the anti-Semitism debate in the West. The Free Press has been very impressive on exposing some of the disinformation that's flying around. So looking at those starvation pictures, which turned out to be children with congenital diseases. There's been other work out there where people have discovered that the murdered boy was alive from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. How responsible?
Or I think the most recent one is the Institute of Genocide Scholars. You guys will remember what's the proper name of that organization?
Yeah, the IAGS. Yeah,
where it turned out that in order to join, you just needed to pay like $125, even something like $30, and declare yourself to be a scholar. I think it turned out that the majority of members in that organization were located in Iraq, which is not exactly a bastion of scholarship of genocide.
It boomed from 150 to 400 members straight after 7th of October. So yeah, clearly, things like this rock our faith in institutions and our faith in the media, I think. But how much do you think the mainstream media themselves are responsible for those plummeting of levels of trust across society, not just in the media itself?
I think a democracy requires a common set of facts, a common set of values, and a common reality. And I think one of the sort of tragedies of the past, certainly since COVID, but I think you could go even deeper beyond that, is that, when we were growing up, we're, I think, all around the same age, when you would hear experts say this, you basically thought, I can trust that. And then came a moment, of course, where the experts were saying all kinds of things. Let's just say during the COVID lockdowns, there was a very storied group of doctors here in America that basically said, you can't gather together in your churches or your synagogues or your mosques, but there's an exception if you're marching against racism because racism is a public health catastrophe. So which is it, right? And how can we trust public health experts that clearly became politicized in that certain way? And you can kind of go down the line. And so now we are living in the aftermath of that. And everyone has their moments, right, of when they sort of lost trust or felt like the expert class, the elite class, the sense-making class, or these institutions broke their trust. For many people since October 7th, it's been on the issue of Israel, and you've pointed out, Andrew, several of those examples. But for other people that pay attention to any number of other issues, it's those things. And so I think the question that those of us who believe that a democracy requires institutional trust and institutions deserving of your trust, right? Like, I think one of the things that's happened is people are like, there's a crisis of trust, there's a crisis of trust. And that's how it's talked about. It's like, no, there's a crisis of trustworthiness. You should not trust something that's not worthy of your trust. How can we build things that are worthy of trust again? And, if I sort of, what is sort of like the theme of the work we're trying to do at the Free Press, and maybe the work even beyond the Free Press that I'm trying to do in the world, it's trying to see if sort of after that shattering, it's possible to rebuild institutions worthy of our trust once again. And so one of the ways that we do that here at the Free Press is just trying in our way and on the subjects where, we're particularly strong and we're trying to grow the breadth of the kinds of things that we write about, trying to expose examples of when people are getting spun by the legacy press.
That infuriates me about it is that these are professional journalists who know how to do their job. It's not like they don't know how to check sources and check stories, but somehow when it gets to controversial subjects like Israel and Gaza, where people feel so polarized, they become cheerleaders rather than reporters, and they forget almost all of their standards and training and suspend it in the pursuit of giving people what they want to hear.
Right. And I think part of that, I think if you're a real, I don't want to say cynic, but if you're sort of on the outside of the media business, you can sort of imagine almost like this cabal of ideologues that are gathering together to make a choice about bias leaning in a certain direction. That's not how it works at all. It's just that if you have a newsroom and it's made up of X hundred or X thousand people, and they all went to the same 5 schools and the same 5 colleges, and they all vote in the same direction.
It's a group thing. It's a group thing. And I know a number of international correspondents who report on the Israel war, and that they genuinely believe certain aspects of the criticism of Israel, which I know to be untrue because I'm not a journalist. I'm not in that space. I'm a professional researcher, and I've seen things with my own eyes. But you can see the groupthink, because they all go drinking together. They all, work in the same social circles, and they all work in the same space. So there's that continual just reinforcement of the same false idea.
And one of the things that is going on at the Free Press is that our newsroom is a reflection of our audience, and more than that, is a reflection of the country. It is very politically mixed. We took a straw poll before the latest election, and a third of people were voting for Trump, a third of people were voting for Kamala, and a third of people weren't voting or were writing in, Steph Curry or whoever else. And in that, we are extraordinarily unique. You just will not find another newsroom like that in America right now. And the question is, that's possible right now with the 60 or so people that work here. Can you do that at scale? And that's a question that I'm asking myself.
And was that some kind of positive action measure that you took, or was it just the
think
vibe?
Part of it is self-selection, right? So like from the beginning, part of the value statement, the mission statement of the Free Press was this idea that, we believe in healthy disagreement. We believe that you can disagree with people and still not just tolerate them, but like them. And that, that getting to the truth requires being in conversation with people, with the smartest, most good faith people on the other side of an argument. And from the beginning, we tried to model that kind of debate on our podcasts, but also in our pages. And there are certain people that are drawn to that kind of thing. So part of it is self-selection. And then part of it is, actively trying to go out and find people who are surprising, who are provocative, who surprise me and challenge me and delight me. Because if that's the case here, that's certainly going to be the case in what the audience is encountering when they're reading us or listening to us or watching us.
Right.
So would you say what we call legacy media is irredeemable in that sense?
No, I don't think it's irredeemable. I mean, I'm an optimist, though, guys. I mean, I'm Jewish, which in the 21st century requires being an optimist. I think, because how unlikely it is that we're even here. So I'm fundamentally an optimist. Having gone through now the experience of building something, I know how difficult it is. So my advice always to people when, and I talk to so many people in so many different institutions or schools or whatever it is, museum boards, whatever, who are facing the kind of institutional capture that we sort of began this conversation talking about. And my response is always, if it's reformable, reform it, because it is so much easier, I think, to try and fix something that's broken than to build something totally new. So, far be it for me to know always, and when I'm in conversation with people, I think, can have their best sense of whether the thing they want to fix is fixable or if they have to start anew. My feeling at that moment in 2020 was start anew. But that isn't to say that there aren't incredible challenges in the world of independent media. The problem of audience capture isn't just a problem for the New York Times. It's a problem for anyone that creates anything who relies on people to pay them for the thing that they create. And so the challenge that exists at scale at the New York Times exists just as much for any independent podcaster. That's just that's the way this market is structured, and that's the challenge for all of us to resist.